8:03 on the 4th of January, 2022. I'd like to open the meeting for the Westborough Economic Development Committee. To start off today, I think we have some minutes. Obviously, we weren't able to have our meeting in December, but we do have some meeting minutes from November 22nd. Has everybody had a chance to review those? And if so, are we prepared? Or are there any changes to those minutes?
No.
No changes. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
And as a quick reminder, I think it would be helpful to, before you vote, just say your name.
Yeah, Jack, I'm going to take Zach. Zach, I'm going to do a roll call.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks, Todd.
So did somebody second that?
Second.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through. This is what we're going to have to do since we are doing this remotely. Anything we vote on, we'll have to do a roll call. So Alexander, I vote yes. Kenny, is she here? No, I don't think so. Keo?
Yes.
Leonardo?
Leonardo, yes.
Rayleigh, I don't think is here. Robbins, I don't think is here. Shafford?
Shafford, yes.
Townsend?
Yes.
Moreau?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
And Zepp.
Yes.
All right, great.
Excuse me, Todd,
Yes.
can I just clarify which minutes those were for? I think we had November 2nd and then December 7th. Is it for both of those?
Only November 2nd because December, I didn't think we had a meeting.
Right. They're just minutes basically saying you didn't have a meeting.
I didn't even look at that, but all right.
Okay.
That's fine then. So let's, all right. So that was for November 2nd. Let's do it for December 7th. Alexander, yes. Keo?
Yes.
Leonardo?
Yes.
Shafford?
Yes, I agree. We didn't have a meeting.
Townsend?
Yes.
Moreau?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
And Zepp.
Yes.
Great. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda is an update on the EDC Year in Review Awards. Rod, I think you're going to be leading us on that discussion.
Sure. Thank you. So we had a meeting of the subcommittee again last month. Our original intent at the meeting that we didn't have was to narrow the categories from I think we have 7 and we were hoping to get to 6.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just looked at the minutes from the 7th and it says that we convened a meeting and we did not convene a meeting because we didn't have a quorum. So I think that just needs to be fixed. Needs to be reflected that there was no meeting.
All right, I'm a little confused because I think we did have a quorum. We just hadn't posted the meeting,
I
so we didn't
apologize.
want to have
I
it.
apologize. You're right. You're right. That's what it was. I apologize.
So to clarify, then we're all set on the minutes. Great. I think back to you, Rod, then.
Thank you. So just to kind of summarize where we are right now, we have selected a date of Friday, April 29th. The intent is to have it in the Great Hall from 8 to 9:30. Lieutenant Governor Polito has been given notice and has a hold on her calendar, but she won't commit till 6 weeks prior to the event. But we feel confident that unless something major changes, she will attend. So the biggest thing we'd like to accomplish today is we have 7 categories that the committee came up with. I think due to time and space, we thought it would make sense to narrow it to 6 and realizing that not every year there's going to be a strong candidate in every division. But just to summarize the categories that we've come up with, and I think, Zach, maybe the thing to do would be to share your screen there. Wonderful. Okay, so the 7 categories that we came up with: new development project awarded to the best, or awarded to business developer for most impactful new construction, new large business, new small business, innovation awarded to a Westborough business as pioneering the future for their industry, civic pride awarded to a business cultivate a reputation as a strong community partner and friend. This is something we've done in the past. A new one for this year that we're considering is a Hall of Fame award to recognize a longstanding business. We suggested greater than 10 years for the indelible mark they left on our local economy. And then a relatively new one, we had actually had this previous years, but had a different kind of understanding of it, was a sustainability award. When we did it in the past, it was more a business that had been around a long time and a sustainable business. We thought it made sense, given Westborough's commitment to sustainability, to perhaps have a award recognizing a business that had achieved some contribution to Westborough's sustainability goals. So from that, we kind of had a brainstorming session and came up with a list of businesses. And I think our intent is to narrow this down today. So there are two questions. One is which ones we want to make the decisions within our group, and which ones we might want to put to a public vote to get the community involved. I believe at our last meeting, the suggestions for one to have perhaps a community vote would be the Civic Pride and Hall of Fame categories. And I think if we did that, we'd obviously want to narrow it down, the number, to a more reasonable amount, and then develop some mechanism to allow people to vote on their choice. Zach, did you have any comments on that and how we might accomplish something like that?
So I think what we could, I thought at the subcommittee meeting, we'd also discussed there might be some, we might inform how we narrow that down based on, how many nominees or potential nominees we have for each award. So, I think maybe as summary or overview, we could just filter each of the award categories by the nominees that, we have suggested there. And then if there's a category that only has 1 or 2, nominees, maybe we consider, holding off on that award for another year or something.
So would it make sense to try to narrow each of these categories to 3 or 5 while we're together today? I think the intent is that by our February meeting, we have announced the winners that would allow Westborough TV to create the videos. So if it makes sense, we could go through each category, come up with a suggestion. Do people have a sense of whether we want to have 3 or 5 to narrow it down?
I think we could just, do 3, or it could be 3 or 5, depending on, the category. Like, I think for some, if 3 is appropriate, that's fine. I think for others, if 5 is appropriate, that's fine. We can just kind of, move through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Leonardo. I might have another suggestion if I could, Todd.
Sure.
I would think that if you take the first category, for instance, new development, once you look at 3 candidates, let's say, I would then eliminate them from other awards. So I wouldn't give the same business multiple awards. It may make this go a little bit quicker too.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so I will filter here for new development project. And so it looks like we have about 8 folks potentially nominated here. And then, of which 6 of them or 5 of them are nominated for another award. Actually, all of them are nominated for another award. Does anyone have any strong feelings for, if we were to narrow this to, let's say, 3, who we might suggest?
And Zach, we're looking at really, this is over the last 2 years.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
From I would say January of 2020. And when Rod, the subcommittee, and I created this list, some of the things that we looked at were building permits, certificates of occupancy that have been issued since that date over the last year. And so, we think, this list should be pretty comprehensive of a lot of the, developments and, kind of recent activity that's been going on in Westborough.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Matthew Newton Real Estate Realty, didn't they move from where they expanded across the street?
Yes. So I think this would be for that move to 8 to 10 West Main Street and kind of, filling the vacancy that was there.
Just as a comment, these businesses are very different. You have large corporations and small corporations, small businesses. In the past, what we've done is we've looked at companies that had the biggest impact on the local economy. So, and you have a couple there that have a big impact. So when I'm thinking about this award, that's what I'm thinking about.
And Jim, which of those companies would you say? Like, I think, there's, I guess the elephant in the room is Amazon Robotics has had a very large impact, on the local economy and, specifically on the Otis Street corridor. Would that be one that folks you want to highlight as a potential nominee for this award?
Yeah, I'm thinking Amazon and Olympus.
If I may, Todd, the only comment I have on Olympus, we did recognize them on our last, I forget what the award they got, but they have been recognized in the not too distant future, or past, I should say.
I believe, Fred, they were recognized in 2019 with Paris and Caruth for the Leader in Development Award.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I clearly, to me, Amazon is the lead candidate in this category. I would push Olympus off just because it was previously recognized. I wasn't all that familiar with RACs, but Zach had a nice story of theirs, which he could contribute. I'd say those would be the top two for me.
Lindsay Taylor was also awarded in a different category, I think, a couple of years ago.
So I think in our committee meeting, I mentioned that, Amazon Robotics really represents everything that the EDC is looking to achieve, and bringing businesses was a huge, Astra was one of the largest, if not the largest taxpayer in the town, and we lost them. And, the town was able to backfill it with Amazon Robotics. It really represents what the EDC is trying to achieve. I do think they need to be on this list. There's nothing as large as that, unfortunately, but I do think also that the racks, that was a vacant building that was on the market for a long time. What they've done with that is great. And what their, the renovations they've done there, and the fact that there were some challenges with that, from what I understand, Fred, as it relates to water sewer capacity and the septic. And then Monroe Tractor, that building that they took over and cleaned up had been pretty run down and kind of only half occupied for many years. And that is something that a lot of people see as they first travel into town. So I think that, to me, those are the three that I think are probably most worthy of being on this list. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Todd, I'd echo that 100%. Keeping in mind that those three companies are new to the town within the last year or so as well, as opposed to, Olympus is too, but the other ones were existing companies, if you will, in Westborough.
Right.
I'd also like to mention quickly that Monroe Tractor also received a grant through the EDC, so it's a way of also promoting ourselves in the process. As something positive we brought in on both sides.
One of the things too is I believe Amazon Robotics previously won, but don't forget Amazon just bought 4,400 computer drive for $65 million. They closed at the end of December. So that Amazon distribution facility hasn't won yet. You know, it's Amazon, but it's a different division. And also a lot of what they did regarding improving the site as far as the water quality and low impact development, you know, they technically weren't required to do that because they maintained their 60% open space. So they didn't need to go to that level, but they did anyway. And I think they went way out of their way to attract, you know, local businesses and comply with the neighbor's request on Smith Street.
Mark, you're speaking about 4400 computer drive, right?
Yes, Amazon at 4400.
Right. I mean, I guess the only concern I would have with giving them an award for that is that right now, all they've done is permitted the site. They haven't done any of the work and they're not up and running.
They
So I don't
deserve
think
an
it's-
award for that.
Yeah. It's one thing to get it permitted and say you're going to do stuff, but when we see it actually done, I think that's probably more worthy of being considered for something like this, in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough.
One thought is that those three companies are also listed under new large business. And I think we were going to try to limit businesses to just being up for one award. So do we want to think about, with those three businesses, is their impact greatest as a development project or as a new business in the community? And then kind of direct where they land based on that.
Right, because some of these companies can check off more than one category.
Do we want to take a quick look at the new, like at what is filtered under new large business? And, you know, we can go back to new development project. And then I think, you know, for the sake of time, we probably would want to make a motion, at least for this category soon. But these are the businesses that we have for, I guess, new large business.
Okay.
Well, I think to echo what Todd had said, I think from a development standpoint, clearly Amazon was the biggest impact. I would suggest we vote for them for new development and leave the others for the large business.
Also, Olympus, I would give them a yes for sustainability because that project is low impact development and it's a LEED certifiable building. They didn't pay the fee to have it LEED, but they did comply with the LEED certifiable requirements.
Thank you for that, Mark. I've added them to the sustainability category as well. So then I think probably what would be most helpful, unless anyone has any more comments, is to go back to the new development project and take or make a motion and take a vote on 3 to put forth as nominees.
I'll make a motion, if I may.
Sure.
I would make a motion that we bring forward for new development projects, Amazon Robotics, Rocks, and Monroe Tractor as the 3 nominees.
Any second?
I'll second that. Mark, Zeph, second.
Okay. All right, so I'll do a roll call. Alexander, yes. Kenny,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Bernardo,
Bernardo, yes.
Robbins,
Yes.
Jaffert,
Yes.
Townsend,
Yes.
Barreau,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Zeph.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Great. And so then we can move on and take a look at the new large business category now that we've removed those 3 companies.
I guess the concern I have is if somebody gets removed and they don't win, should they still be eligible I know that kind of complicates the math here, but.
I would think they would qualify.
I agree. I think we could consider them. I think we should consider them as well. Hey, Mark, is Battery Resources, is that one of the Caruth properties?
I don't think so.
Okay, I will add back those businesses so that we can consider them for the new large business category as well. And then given that decision, I would suggest that for the new large business category, we nominate maybe 5 instead of 3 to just to give some opportunity to the other businesses that already haven't been nominated as well.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll let folks take a look, and then we can have discussion, and again, whenever someone's comfortable making a motion for 5, then we can do that and take a vote on it.
So can you explain, I think you made before, Battery Resources was another company that did batteries, but then they became something else? Do you know the history there, Zach?
I don't know the full history. I know that they're a company that was originally based in Worcester, and either through merger or acquisition, they've acquired some type of plant in Michigan. And so what they do, if my understanding is correct, is they produce batteries. They're like a large scale, not like the batteries that you would have in your home, but like large kind of like cell batteries. And they are new to Westborough on Flanders Road as part of this kind of expansion that they have been having out of Worcester. Does anyone else know more about their background? Or I know I've worked with their I believe CEO to help them with the issue they've been having with National Grid, and then they were also having some, like everybody else in this world, trying to find employees for their new Westborough location as well.
Yeah, if I may, if I'm thinking the right place and everything that Zach said rings a bell, that they're big on actually recycling of the batteries. So they have a whole process where they not only may make the batteries, but they recycle all the products. So they kind of break down old batteries. And part of the process in Westborough, they recently moved in again. Part of that is the recycling of the batteries. They make like a mulch or whatever they call it. It's kind of, they crush it up there. I don't even think they crush them up here. It's just part of the process. And they eventually send these things to Michigan. So, from a sustainability point too, you can almost look at them from that way too. Anyway, that's what I know of them.
Fred, do you know much about ThinkLight, Malvern, or Canal Toys?
ThinkLight, again, I believe is on Flanders, and they're a company that also or sells light bulbs, basically. But I think they're more geared towards commercial. I don't think you go there like as a resident to buy from your houses. I think it's more bulk and commercial applications of light bulbs.
Another one that I just added is, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on the history here, but Middlesex Bank has an operations center on 120 Flanders Road, and I think, if I'm correct, that they moved in there within the last 2 years, so that might qualify, but they might have been there longer. I'm not 100% sure. I can take them off. I see Mark nodding and shaking his head.
Yeah, they were there longer, but they did do a major renovation where they moved a bunch of their employees to One Research Drive as they pretty much rehabbed the whole building, right, Fred?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And you can actually ask Bonnie; she could probably tell you better.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yes, you're correct. I'm actually in that building now. I moved from Natick to Westborough.
Better commute.
Yeah.
Can I throw something out there? I think this is all very important. Obviously, we need to get through this, but it's going to take, I think it's going to take a lot of time. We've only gotten through one of the categories so far, and we've got 6 more to go. How do people feel about maybe having another meeting just to focus on this, whether it be a half hour, 45-minute meeting some morning within the next week or two, in order to get through these categories? I'm just concerned that we're going to get way off on our agenda right now. And I do think this is important. I think it's important that we have a conversation about each potential nominee. But I think that we're going to find that we'll never get through the rest of the agenda if we.
Well, one other thing you might try, Todd, is just have the subcommittee come up with the finalists and then present the finalists to the committee and have the committee vote on each category based on the information given.
People feel all right about that? People good with that?
Yeah, and we can look these over. I just confirmed with someone at work that Canal Toys is a tenant in Westborough Office Park. And I don't think they're a large business. I think they only have a couple thousand feet, if that.
So I think the definition for new large business, and this is something that maybe might be worth discussing before we table this, is that the way we defined large and small business is that really the definition is where the business is owned, if it's locally owned versus not locally owned. And so when I had looked into Canal Toys, it didn't seem like they were, a Westborough owned business. Whereas somebody like like Pathrough Designs or Capacity Nutrition are kind of locally owned. And we could tweak these definitions, or the subcommittee could choose to do so if folks felt strongly about another framing. But that's why Canal Toys kind of landed where it did.
Okay.
All right, so why don't we, if everybody's good with it, let's let the committee go back and come up with the nominees then at our next meeting, I think, which is scheduled in the next week or two, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, I believe it is next.
All right.
I guess that before we leave, and I think that's fine, Todd, do we want to narrow the categories down, or you want to leave the subcommittee? Do we still believe that we should narrow it from 7 to 6? Again, we can let the subcommittee make that decision as well.
The other factor to consider here is that when I asked Westborough TV for their capacity to make the videos for an end of April deadline, I had only said, that we would be doing 5 or 6. I didn't say 7, because I think one of these was kind of like a late addition to the list. I could reach back out to Karen and her team and see if they would have the capacity for a 7th if we really wanted to keep it. But that was, I think, why we were trying to narrow in the first place, was to be mindful of their capacity.
And, I think based on, and I think it's important, I think the one that we were kind of on the fence a little bit about was sustainability. One is, I don't think we had that many people, and 2, whether this committee had the ability to really understand and recognize who might qualify for that.
We talked about E.L. Harvey as an innovator in sustainability, with building the solar farm and figuring out ways to use that for the farming as well. Just putting it out there in our last discussion.
I can filter that category just so folks can see, kind of who we have under that. Oh, and it looks like, oh, that's because I'm double full. Yep, here we go. And so, yeah, I think to Rod's point, we have a handful, but not a ton, and certainly not comprehensive of, all the good work that's been done in the sustainability field here in Westborough. But to Linda's point, we do have a few strong candidates here as well. And so I think if nobody has any strong feelings or comments about this, I think probably this is something that we can, sort of punt back to the subcommittee at its meeting next week to make a decision on the final categories and the, final nominees for the EDC to vote on in February.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's do that.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. And before we get started on the next agenda item, I understand that Jen Sullivan is on with us from the Board of Health to talk about, I think Christy had invited her to talk about the new mask mandate that I guess is being implemented in town.
Yeah, so I had invited Jen because last night at the Board of Health meeting, they voted to implement a mask mandate that's going to start tomorrow, and that would apply to businesses as well. So,
good morning. Due to the increase of COVID cases in Westborough and surrounding communities, and also the surge of cases in the hospitals, making them overloaded and unfortunately without beds at this time, the Board of Health did place a townwide mask mandate in all public indoor settings effective tomorrow. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. We are asking all businesses to clearly state in the entryway that there is a mask mandate and a mask is required. So that's what we're doing effective tomorrow until possibly our next meeting, which is January 18th, and then they will be evaluating.
And do you want to let us know how businesses will be made aware?
So I'm hoping we have the businesses that we deal with. We'll be posting on our website, obviously our Facebook page. We also have the businesses that we deal with and all their contact info. So I'm wondering if maybe Zach, you have a contact for or a list of businesses we can send an email out to, reach out to as best as we can.
So I do have a contact list. A lot of it, I think it's very much overlaps with yours because I used, Ray sent me the inspection list to help me update it.
Okay.
There might be a few other businesses that are included, but yeah, I would assume there's still a fair amount of overlap. I was planning to send out a newsletter this week to the list of contacts that we have. Fred, and this is going to be part of the outreach update as well. So for EDC, you can listen with that hat on as well. Fred and I had worked with Wendy Mickle to amend the DBA certificate and that whole process so that we can get contact information for new businesses when they file DBAs with her office. We have some contacts from all of the building, inspections and things like that, from the health inspections, and then contacts that I've picked up and collected along the way. Like I said, I was planning to use that list to send out a newsletter this week with some updates on the grant program and, other things for businesses to be taking advantage of. So I can include, this message in that and maybe try and get it out a day or so sooner than I was originally planning, or I can just try to send out a blast. Is there any material you have pre-prepared about the mask mandate that you could send to me for me to share with them and then post on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send something to you today.
Cool, that would be great. And I'll try and get it out ASAP so that we can get ahead of the tomorrow deadline.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Just to clarify, because we're going to get a lot of questions at Caruth, if someone's sitting in their own office, do they need to wear a mask?
If they're in their own space 6 feet apart from others, then they do not.
Okay. How about if they're in a cubicle more than 6 feet apart? In the open area? Okay. So six feet apart is the
key.
Okay. It's kind of like what it was, a year ago.
Yep.
If you're up and around, put your mask on. If you go back on your cube or your office, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so if there's some kind of notice from the town that we can just forward to all the tenants as well as posting at the entrance, that would be very helpful. And that way we're not the bad guys either.
Sure. I'll have Zach.
You could be the bad guy.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, unfortunately. So I'll have Zach send that out as well.
Cool.
And
Jen,
that actually reminds me of a good point, Mark, which is I'll try and send it to the property owners, major property owners' contact information I have as well. And so even if there's like a business in one of their properties, whose contact information I don't have, hopefully it will get to them through their landlords.
Great, thank you.
Jen, what about classes if people are 6 feet apart? My assumption was that now all classes attendees will need to wear masks, but if we have 6 feet spacing, is that still true?
It is. So if you're in your own personal workspace, it's different than being in public in a classroom.
Okay.
So a mask would be required.
Okay.
Christy, will we be using code red to communicate this, or?
Yeah, we can. I think that's a good use of that. So we can talk about that, Jen.
Okay, I like that idea.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Yeah, just real quick, I think that Jen and Zach, anything that you can get out to the area businesses would be great. You know, just so that, I mean, I have the sign from last year and everything, and I still have it, but I do have customers sometimes that put up a little bit of a thing when they come in the store. So I'd like to be able to say, look, this is just how it is.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jen.
All right.
Thank you very
all have
much.
a great morning. Take care.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is the EDC Ambassador Program. Zach, I think you have an update for us on that.
Great. And here I just wanted to pretty much, hopefully this should be pretty quick, but just affirm, I guess, the process for, I guess, recruiting and then appointing EDC ambassadors. I'm told, and, Christy or Fred, correct me if I have the misunderstanding here, but that an ambassador can't, like the EDC does have the authority to, I guess, vote and appoint an ambassador at a regular meeting. So what I would propose going forward as the process for ambassador selection is that I'll create, a application on the EDC website, which will be really quick. It'll basically like name, email, phone number, and then why do you want to be an EDC ambassador will be the one question. When folks fill that out, I will put something on the agenda to have them, come in and just, be appointed or voted by the EDC to fill that role. And then, once that happens, I can update the website accordingly and include them in our roster of ambassadors and the folks who we have conversations with. Right now, otherwise, the ambassador program has been in a bit of a holding pattern because I think we have Bonnie and we have Pete Allen who are both joined this morning, which is great. But I think we're going to need a couple more ambassadors before we can really start scheduling meetings in earnest. I have been preparing fact packs sort of on a couple of the programs and things that we'll be marketing to businesses in these conversations. So the EDC Business Assistance Grant is a major one. Westborough Power Choice is another one that we're going to be including there. Would also be a good opportunity to have conversations around what issues are facing businesses and what kinds of things the town or larger organizations, if we're not the right one, might be able to do in terms of advocacy to solve some of those issues. And so I'm also going to start this week trying to get some meetings on the calendar. I think Todd had shared with me the contact information for a really innovative business on, I want to say, Computer Drive in Nanio. And so we can start there and with a couple of the other, major, more, I guess, corporate businesses in town and get some meetings on the calendar, get some new ambassadors recruited and, Pete, Bonnie, myself, and any EDC member that wants to, we can start going out and having those conversations. But that's the general update of where things stand right now. If there's anything that I misunderstood about the appointment process, Christy or Fred, please correct me. But so long as that's okay with anyone or with everyone and that there's no comment or feedback, I think that'll be the path forward.
I think that sounds great. I think
great. And then
Yeah, I think you're okay. I think that's fine, Zach.
Okay, great. And then for the meetings, what I will do as they start to get scheduled, just so everyone has transparency and visibility, I'll create a like either a spreadsheet or a Google Doc. I'm still not 100% sure which one would be best to share with everyone so that you guys can see, you know, as meetings get on the calendar and things like that. So that's the plan.
Excellent. I think it's important to get that program up and running again.
Awesome.
Great.
And so next on the agenda is an update on outreach strategy. And so what I wanted to do here are two things: just update everyone on, you know, kind of where things stand with EDC outreach, and then two, just confirm what kind of events we might want to do this year. I know it's a conversation we had in July, and there were a couple ideas that were discussed, but I just want to, you know, make sure that I have them right and that we're ready to move forward on those. Beginning, you know, as I was saying earlier, Fred, myself, and Wendy Mickle collaborated to modify the process of obtaining a business certificate in Westborough so that the EDC and the Community Development Department have, I guess, more of a direct pipeline to getting contact information for new businesses in town. That has allowed us to build a bit of an outreach list over the last couple months, you know, paired with, again, tapping other resources such as the Board of Health and their contacts, the building department's contacts, and, you know, the Chamber of Commerce contacts and things like that. So we have, I think, a critical mass of a list right now of contacts. And I think that, you know, as we start using that list to notify folks of programs or grant application deadlines and, you know, other helpful updates like road closures or the Board of Health mask mandate, it'll act as a flywheel and bring more attention to itself. And then, you know, folks will come out of the woodwork asking to be put on the list. I'm planning to send out a newsletter by end of week, which will have some updates on the EDC's grant program, updates on the 4195 Metro West Partnership's new supply chain directory, which would behoove, I think, all local manufacturers to get on. Updates on, you know, some upcoming events like the year-end review award celebration, and, you know, things like that. I'll also reach out to DPW and, you know, just see if there's any major road closures or construction projects that might affect traffic that businesses should be aware of, and try and include helpful information in that newsletter to send out this week using that list. So that, I think, is, you know, the most immediate goal regarding EDC outreach. The second piece is that I know in the past, you know, we had done the broker brunch. I know that it was mostly an event geared towards real estate agents and making folks aware of what available properties there were in town. I believe at our July 20th meeting, you know, we had talked about doing a similar event to the Brokers Breakfast about available properties and kind of real estate developments. And then another event specifically on the EDC's business assistance grant. Given, you know, that the EDC grant, you know, might have new elements such as like a scoring rubric and criteria, and maybe a little more transparency on what the evaluation process looks like. I just wanted to bring those two topics back to this group and to either affirm or change, you know, what we want to do in terms of, you know, smaller scale events than the year-end review award. So if we still think those topics, you know, kind of a real estate, you know, available properties option, and then an informational about the EDC grant program option are right, then I'm happy to move forward and try and start planning those events, whether it be virtual due to, I guess, the rising COVID-19 case levels locally, or remotely. You know, we can kind of figure that out based on timing. But I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement that 2 events, you know, around those 2 topics is where we want to go. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments, or feedback?
I would just add that the Brokers Breakfast that we had previously, we invited people from the state to talk about programs that are available. So in addition to TIFs that we could offer locally, I think we had someone from MOBD there as well, so that folks were aware of, you know, other opportunities. So I think that that's important as we're talking about properties that are available, but also options for, you know, support.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's a super important component of the real estate equation, right? Is where's your property, but how do you finance it? And so I think if we do want to go in that route, we can definitely have those folks there.
Could they actually be two separate events?
Yeah, they would be two separate events. So one event focused around what properties are available and, what are some of the tools that exist at the state level and local level to finance those kind of tools. And then one specifically on the EDC grant program, what it's for, the eligibility criteria, eligible uses, and kind of how the program works. The other options, I know that I think at our last meeting, Derek Sari, who was at that time a member of the EDC, suggested, an event around like conservation requirements and, kind of dealing with wetlands and what developers or, real estate agents or property owners who own properties that abut wetlands or ACECs need to know. That was something that was suggested. I know that, networking is something that I think some EDC members have expressed as an interest in doing more of. And so, we could just have, like a small networking event, either virtually or in person. But I think when we left this, we had kind of honed in on, the real estate kind of topic and the EDC grant topic.
I think those are both good choices.
I think I experienced the broker breakfast that Bonnie put together a few years ago. It was, I think, very well received, and I think we should definitely do that again. As far as doing another one for a grant program, maybe it's not necessarily a grant program, but just what you said, Zach, it's more of a networking event, but then the EDC can have some time during that event to explain some of the programs that we have, such as the grant program and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily need to be focused on that. That's my thought.
Just to weigh in on that, I think the Brokers Breakfast was extremely successful, was a great event. I think it's something we should do annually. The networking event, to agree with what Todd said, is a good opportunity to explain and introduce our grant program. But the networking events that are put on by the Quarter 9 Chamber are very effective. People exchange business cards, talk a little bit about what they do. That's I think, a very effective venue for local businesses to meet other businesses that do similar things, because when partnerships develop through small local businesses, large ideas can emerge. And I think that's a very effective event for very small cost. So I heartily recommend that we do that in the future.
Okay. If nobody else has any other comments or feedback, I think this sounds good. I think we have, or at least I have, a direction to run in for this. And, once, I guess the COVID-19 settles a little bit, I can provide an update on where these are going. So.
Great. Thank you, Zach. All right. Next on the agenda is the Why Westborough video.
Yep. And I can just share my screen real quickly. I think this can be very quick. I wanted to give the EDC at our last meeting a chance to take a look at the very, very close to final script that Westborough TV and myself have been collaborating on for this Why Westborough video. Wanted to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at it. If you had any kind of major feedback or calls for edits, this would sort of be the last call for that. We can definitely still tweak it. We've reached out to all of the speakers that we had kind of penciled in for each of these lines and confirmed that they do want to participate in the event. Right now, where we are is just Westborough TV, myself are coordinating capacity to go out and get the footage of all the speakers to say the lines that are featured in this script. But everybody has agreed. It's just about figuring out timing and getting the folks together to actually record. but I will pull this up on my screen and give folks a second to review. And if anyone has any comments or feedback, please do share. And so I think specifically, if there's something that is one of Westborough's major assets or something that is worth highlighting that we're missing here, that's in our blind spot, I think that'd be great to surface right now. The concept for the video is that it's kind of repetitive in the sense that each scene sort of will begin with Westborough Works for something, with someone else narrating, after you say what Westborough works for, a little snippet of evidence as to why that's true. So for example, Westborough works for getting wherever you need to go. And then somebody will say Westborough is the only community where Route 9, 495, I-90 all intersect, and it's only 40 minutes from Logan Airport, which to a lot of businesses or prospective residents, I think is one of our greatest structural assets, right? Is that access is where we are, makes it a really good place to do business.
Zach, this is Mark. A couple things too that you can add to this is in certain areas, Westborough has the expedited development certification from the state. I forget, Jim, do you know off the top, is it 42B or something like that? I
think, is it 43D?
It is 43D. Yes, it's expedited permitting. That's what it's called.
So that's important for people that are just qualifying where to, big companies that are out of town, they look for things like this right away. They'll weed out communities without you ever knowing that they're looking. And then the other item, I think we're a platinum biotech community. Is that correct?
We are a platinum bio community.
Right. And so we do have that captured here under, I think it's point 7, which is Westborough Works.
Oh, yes. Okay. Great.
Yeah. And I think that one is really important because there are, it is actually quite rare. There's over 350 municipalities in Massachusetts and only 32. So just, right around 10% are platinum rated.
Right.
I mean, you need to do to qualify for that, or how did we qualify for that?
You need to meet, it's a distinction given by Mass Bio, and you need to meet a certain set of qualifications, like as a town. So one of them, I think, is having certain guidelines, publicly available and published for permitting of certain types of systems. I forget exactly which one, but I know the Board of Health has that guideline. It's like for a certain permitting process for mRNA, needs to be very well defined and clearly communicated, which Westborough does have. It's on the Board of Health website. And there are a few other things, or I guess pieces of qualifications for how you become platinum bio ready. But it's not like it's a, sort of hand wavy, like, oh, this place is good for life sciences. There's like a concrete set of things that need to be in place in order for you to receive the distinction.
And I can tell you that it's important because when people, particularly out-of-state businesses, do their search, they'll enter this. It's also, if we at Caruth participate in the Mass Econ Ready 100 properties, and you do specify if you're a platinum biotech community or 43D community. So when people just search using their computer, if either you're in or out,
And we're also a local and regional economic target area community, a designation that we received from the Commonwealth's Office of Business Development, where myself and the original chair of the EDC, Rajane, together with the then town manager, Henry Danis, had to go to the state, make a presentation about Westborough's infrastructure and permitting process to get that designation. So that's also an important tool that we need to somehow work in here, or maybe not so much in here, but in any printed material about the community. that we are an economic target area, because that makes us eligible for certain grant programs that communities that are not designated as an ETA are not eligible for. And a little bit more information about bio-ready communities. There are 3 levels of certification, silver, gold, and platinum. In order to receive each level, there is an evaluation of the permitting steps necessary to cite or locate a biotech company. Could be lab space, could be manufacturing, but communities like Westborough that don't require special permits, but which have specific guidelines that allow by right uses, those are given special consideration. And because we do have Board of Health guidelines for laboratory uses and research and development, we were able to achieve the platinum bio-ready status, which gives us a significant competitive advantage over our neighboring communities in Central Mass.
And Jim, just to confirm, you said that's a ETA, right? Economic Target Area?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. And then I'll just scroll down so that folks can see the last 2 as well. But if there's any other major additions or, like I said, key features to highlight, it'd be great for us to know now. And then, I think nobody has any other comments or feedback. We can move on, being mindful of time here.
Zach, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Fred.
Thank you. Very quickly, there was some conversation about like entertainment, a la like a Cold Harbor. I don't know if Karen kind of gave up on that thought.
Like highlighting kind of Westborough's entertainment assets and things like that. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and I think Cold Harbor is one of those particular things, but I know she was having trouble getting any kind of feedback on that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain where that thread led. I do know that, originally when Karen and I started working on this script, we had like maybe 200 points to highlight. And, it was like a 7-paragraph or 7-page, prose form script. And what we really worked to do here was cut it down as far as possible and really boil it down to what are the key kind of quick points that highlight, what makes Westborough a special community for business. And, that was a very difficult process. I would imagine that something like that probably was, I guess, whittled out during that process. But, we'd be happy to add it back if you think that it is, something that needs to be said here.
No, that's fine.
The goal for the video, just for context as well to everyone, I should have said this at the beginning, is to be a 3-minute, 3.5-minute type video. We find that anything longer, and folks' attention wanes and it's really just not effective anymore.
Hey, if you could scroll for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was number 6. I would just modify it to say Westborough holds business Wednesday.
That's a great point.
But this looks great. Thank you.
And from personal experience, I can say that that's very, very important and very useful as a developer and a landlord to be able to walk in and bounce ideas and meet with all the town officials regarding what's necessary, what to look out for is great. I love that aspect.
Awesome.
I just wanted to mention quickly, I'm wondering whether it should mention Logan International Airport and Worcester. I don't know whether. Possibly.
We could. I had thought Logan, I think Logan has more name recognition, I guess. And
yeah,
then it's open.
Yeah.
I think it all depends on who the target audience for this
right. No question.
For someone I think when Karen and I have been kind of conceiving this video, we were thinking about the target audience being maybe a business that, might not even exist in Massachusetts yet or something
Right.
like that. And so, letting them know that there's an international airport 40 minutes away seemed like something more important to highlight, but, we could add that in as well if you feel strongly.
Yeah. Well, I get your point.
This is Pete Allen with just one thought, and also to show everybody that I am awake. On where you're talking about for your employees there in number 5, I have heard some discussion about there being some key terms to use that are meaningful for businesses, but there may be a very good shorthand about for your employees. It wasn't too many years ago when I think Westborough got on one of the best places to live lists. I think that could be a useful inclusion to talk about how livable the town of Westborough is. It could be a good shorthand to say, wow, it must be a nice town if it got on one of those lists.
That's a great idea. And I think, again, as we try and, every, second of the video is extremely valuable space. And so as we try and, keep it short, concise, and attention grabbing, being able to encapsulate things quickly with something like, being on a best place to live list is really important. So I can take a look. Do you happen to know, Pete, what publication or, group had put that together, or?
I can look it up, but I'm sure, Bonnie and a number of others could perhaps do that, but I will look for it and send it to you if I find it, Zach.
Okay, I'll do some digging on my own as well. But if you
I
find
have that, Zach, if you need it. I have it on one of the original slick brochures that Bonnie and I put together at the beginning of this. It was Money Magazine ranked Westborough in the top 25 communities in the country to live in based on several criteria such as schools, cost of living, housing stock, and income, education, things like that.
That is the one I was thinking of.
Great. I'll connect with Jim offline and see if I can get the details on that.
Zach, do you have anything in here about a commuter rail station?
I believe
under commuters, you do.
Oh, yeah, here it is, number 4, right? Oh, commercial rail. No, sorry.
That's
Second
commercial
page,
rail.
Zach.
So it doesn't mention actually the MBTA station, but it mentions the VIA. When I think we could modify this pretty easily to incorporate both.
Yeah,
the other piece of this that we were thinking about, or that we're thinking about that's not captured here, is what images are being projected when this narration occurs or when you see somebody speaking. And so I believe in kind of a larger spreadsheet, Karen and her team and I had discussed for the VIA point and the 4 commuters point, like the visual cue in the background would be the MBTA station, and would say Westborough, and you'd see the purple line and things like that. So there are some other aspects that will get captured visually and not, I guess, verbally. Another example of that is like for new development, we would be showing, stock footage of someone using Permit Pro in the online permitting system, and things like that.
So the things that businesses look at are accessibility, but also housing stock. That's always been a hot button when, whenever any economic council asks businesses what's important to them, affordable housing and housing stock is always very important. And Westborough has good housing stock. So a quick blurb on that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, with that, I think we should be good to move on to the next item in our agenda.
Great work on that, Zach. You and Karen obviously have put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's really coming along nicely.
Nice job, Zach.
So next on the agenda is the EDC grant program. If you recall, a couple meetings ago, we're starting, people are becoming familiar, more aware of the grant program. We're getting a lot of applications. I think we're all in agreement that we wanted to kind of take another look at the criteria that we have in place and see if there were changes that we wanted to make to that. So we had asked people to send any comments to Zach as it relates to potential criteria that we could follow. And I think, Zach, you have a list together, correct?
Yep, and I should be sharing my screen so folks should be able to see it. A lot of these come from Mark. So Mark, thank you for your very, very helpful and thoughtful feedback. These are some of the things that we've collated. I think the best way to have this conversation and also be mindful of time is to give folks a second to look and digest and to add anything that we might want to capture or consider in the future. And then I think what would be best is to defer this back to staff. So have Fred and myself and I think John Steinberg, who is part of the group that does staff review for the grant applications before they get to the EDC to make sure they're complete and eligible and things like that. And then we could kind of take this list and try and develop a framework, probably with scoring and different weights to bring back at a future meeting and suggest for criteria. And then, at that future meeting, folks can provide an additional set of feedback and, or we could vote to approve it if we think it's in good shape at that time. How does that sound? Great.
Good to me. Everybody else good with that?
So I'll give folks a...
I don't know if anyone looked, but after I sent this, I looked at the Framingham site and they had a lot of good ideas. So we'll add it, particularly the signage and facade program, accessibility, and correction of code. I thought were three good things that they have that I would recommend. So I'll update this and send it to Zach.
That would be great. Thanks, Mark. I haven't had I took a quick check at what you sent. I haven't had time to read it thoroughly yet. But I think also as we have this conversation, it's important to remember the distinction between eligibility criteria and I guess competitive criteria. So we just want to be mindful that we're not melding the two concepts where it's like I think like specifically for like the sign and facade improvement, that could be an eligible use. And I actually think that signage is an eligible use in our program, but facade improvement is not. Like I think cosmetic facade improvement is not. And that would be different, I think, than saying, when we have two eligible applications and they're asking for $10,000, but we only have $5,000, how do we decide who gets what money? Which I think a lot of the suggestions that you had sent, Mark, kind of speak to or address, right? Like, are the funds going to improve the downtown district? Might give someone priority over another, things like that.
Well, just one comment here. I'm not part of the group, but Mark mentioned something that I think is really valuable. He looked at Framingham. I think we can learn a lot by looking at other communities that have grant programs, what they use the grant funds for in terms of local projects. I think Shrewsbury has a small business grant program. You might take a look at what they do as well. But any community that has that, I think we should look to see what types of grants they provide.
Ashland also has one as well. And so maybe, whether it be at the next meeting or, a meeting after that, I can put it on my to-do list to try and take a look at, I know we have a list of, and, Fred, you can correct me on this, some peer communities. I think, like Lexington might be one. And then I'm forgetting the full list, but there's 14 communities or something that are, economically and demographically similar to Westborough. And so we can look at those communities as a starting point to see what their criteria are for their grant programs, and Framingham included, because we, have them and know they have some robust and good criteria. And then, I can try and summarize, what we're seeing in those, and, we can compare that to the list that we're brewing here. And then, staff can create like a draft scoring rubric.
Your peer communities list, Zach, does that come from the MMA?
It might. I'm not exactly sure what the origin is. I've only used it, I think, once.
Yeah.
Just quickly, this is Holly. Zach, this is great. And I think at the end of the day, as long as we have something really solid in place that we can refer back to, that people that are applying for the grants can see how we came to those decisions, I think that's going to just be really important. And consistency. So thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks, Mark, for all your input too. We appreciate it. All right, let's move on then. So the next item on the agenda is the annual report.
Great. And so for the annual report, what I would propose doing, I know Todd and I think Linda received emails from CELA about the annual report, which is due on January 31st. For those of you who are newer to the committee and might not know, the annual report is like a booklet that each of the town departments and committees contribute to summarize their, I guess, activities over the last year. I believe for last year, Kim Foster put this together for the EDC, but this year I will be taking the lead on that, now that the Economic Development Coordinator position has been filled. I've looked at a couple of the previous annual reports and the sections for the EDC, and I think there tends to be like a bit of a formula to it. And so what I would suggest doing for the annual report is giving myself and Fred a couple of weeks, so like maybe until the end of next week, like the 14th, the opportunity to take that formula and then update it with the last year's activities and major accomplishments and key events, and then I will send that offline to the committee for individual feedback. So if you have any thoughts or if there's anything, again, that we have failed to include that was an accomplishment of the EDC that's worth highlighting, you can send that feedback to me individually by email. And I believe that would still comply with open meeting law. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem, as long as they just send their suggestions or ideas directly to you, Zach, and not have a conversation through emails.
And does that work for everyone on the committee, or is there anything else that we should highlight? Is there any other thoughts that we should incorporate into the process?
I think that sounds like the best way to proceed.
Great.
That's great.
So I think then on that, we are all set and still on schedule. So I think the next thing is
planning report. Jim?
Thank you. I'm going to be really brief. Interest of time. So the planning board this evening meets. They will approve site plan approval for the expansion of the Verizon facility at 400 Freiburg Parkway. That's a new mechanical records keeping and switching station expansion for Verizon. There'll only be 2 employees there. And as we know, West Park Drive is a privately owned road with private utilities. Also, for the upcoming town meeting, the planning board is going to come back with the recommendations for the expanded industrial D district, which we're going to call industrial E, on the west side of town. Right now, the proposal is to allow expansion for density and coverage, a height bonus up to 5 stories as opposed to 6 stories on the east side of town, and coverage up to 50% with 50% open space as opposed to the existing 60% requirement for open space. So that's an increase in coverage and an increase in height to try and attract additional business on the west end of town, which is Otis Street, Valenti Drive up on Boston Hill, parts of Smithville Parkway, and Secaucus Drive as well. Also, we're looking at amending the digital billboard bylaw. As you know, we asked town meeting to return that to the planning board and zoning review committee for further study. We're in the process of rewriting a draft on that. We will circulate that for comments as well. And that's, I think, the most important things at this point.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
And Jim, do you know when, sorry to interrupt, Todd, we will, or when we can expect the revised draft of the, I guess, the electronic billboard bylaw to be completed?
Sure. The zoning review committee meets next week, and then we will distribute what comes out of that committee.
Got it. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions for Jim? All right, then let's move on to the community development report. Zach?
Great. So I guess this covers the last 2 months because we were not able to meet in December. Burger King finally was able to open in, I think, late November, early December. Very much thanks to Fred. And Bob's clothing store has opened in November in the plaza that has the Ocean State job lot. Jersey Mike's is strongly considering opening a location at 1 Oak Street. I believe they have filed a building permit for that site. USRA Event Center, which is a banquet hall, will be opening soon on 45 Oak Street. So stay tuned for updates on that. Regarding EDC programs and broader community development department activity, we did host a successful winter stroll event in the end of November on that last weekend. 45 businesses participated, and we actually sent out a survey to the participating businesses to gauge their interest in participating in the future, and to have a basis to make any changes to the event if that's warranted. And the early returns on the survey data are that about 85% of participating businesses would have interest in doing it again. So I think it was a pretty successful event, with actually 67% of businesses that responded to the survey reporting that the event brought new customers into their business. And so I think, the reason why the EDC, I think, historically has been involved is to try and use this event to bring new business to our business community. And it seems that, the early returns are suggesting that we have indeed done that. As I had mentioned earlier, the 495 Metro West Partnership has launched a supply chain directory for local manufacturers to find each other and use their, use locally sourced parts and components. I will be including that in a newsletter, in our newsletter this week to businesses to make them aware of that resource. On the LRP, we've actually we did a further consultation with some consultants from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on funding resources for a couple of our later phase projects, specifically the wayfinding project and the mobility project. And they have provided me over the weekend with a funding resource guide to give us some guidance on how, when the time comes to seek funding for those projects, what resources we might tap and what angles we might take as part of those applications. Regarding recent events, there was a ribbon cutting for a new business, Simply Windows, hosted by the Quarter 945 Chamber on December 8th at 5:30. The EDC was in attendance for MassEcon's annual meeting on December 9th. The Quarter 945 Chamber had their holiday snowball, of which I attended along with Mark on December 15th. And then the Metro West Chamber of Commerce had a legislative reception also on December 15th. In terms of upcoming events, if anyone's interested to join, please reach out to me and I can provide the details. There is MassEcon is having a 2022 economic outlook on January 12th at 10:30 a.m. I think this could be a very helpful event for EDC members to attend if you would like to. They should be providing an overview of some of the key economic trends that have been occurring across the Commonwealth, in the last year and where they might go in the upcoming year. So, I think it could be a very helpful opportunity. MAPC is having an event on January 11th. presenting some recent research that group has undertaken surrounding how to rethink and revitalize suburban strips. So like suburban strip malls and shopping centers, a lot of what Westborough has on Route 9. And that event will be on January 11th at 2:30 p.m. So again, I think that could potentially be very helpful to EDC members in terms of functioning as a source of inspiration for some of the things that we might do for some of those strip malls and shopping centers on Route 9 and outside of our downtown. MAPC is also having an informational webinar, which I will attend on January 5th at 10 a.m. on the Shared Streets and Spaces program. The Shared Streets and Spaces program could be a good funding resource for some of our LRP projects and for potentially any other work or projects that the EDC might do in the future. And so I will be attending just to know more about that grant program and how municipalities can take advantage of it.
Zach, do you have a list of these items? Because I'm having a hard time hearing you and hearing your description.
I can send out a list of these items to the full board shortly after this meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
But that's it from me. Unless Fred, if there's anything I've missed, feel free to jump in.
Okay. I think that just about wraps it up. We have other business. Anything anyone would like to talk about?
Just want to add one quick question relative to the shopping center thing that Zach was talking about. The theater on Route 9, the old AMC. Is anything happening with that, or where does that stand?
It's, we still don't know who the owner is, so it's going through the tax title process. And so, assuming that, at some point it would, like other tax title properties, would become property of the town, and then we would move forward with disposition. So, but there's no update really. It's still unclaimed.
Okay. How long does a process like that typically take, Christy? Is it years? Is it?
So if you have an identified owner, it can take up to a year or 2 years, but there being no identified owner makes this process last longer. So, yeah.
I thought at one point the town had taken it over, and then somebody came forward.
So the town meeting had authorized a borrow of $6 million in preparation for taking it by eminent domain. And so the board had discussed taking it by eminent domain, but someone came forward, and so the board chose to just move through the tax title process.
Yeah.
Anything else? We should probably talk about our next meeting. I think that is, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but obviously the first Tuesday in February. Do people want to do that remotely or in person?
February
So
1st.
part of what the Board of Health voted last night, which we didn't mention, is to have boards and committees meet remotely. Unless there's a need for them to meet in person. And at this point, they're saying that through January, but I think probably we should plan to hold it remotely just based on that, since it's the first Tuesday.
Okay.
So Tuesday, February 1st.
Okay. All right, so that meeting will be remote. So when we post that, obviously, we need to incorporate that information. So anything else?
Our next subcommittee meeting for the awards, what's the date on that again?
I believe it is Monday the 10th.
Okay.
But I will need to refer back to my notes, and I'll send an invite out about that today.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody who's not on the committee that wants to join us, please feel forward. Appreciate everybody's input.
Zach, you've been staying busy. We appreciate all your hard work. You're doing a great job on all of these different topics and matters. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the committee's helpful engagement. So
Yes, thank you, Zach.
Two-way street.
All right, do I hear a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
And a second? All right. Alexander, yes. Kenny?
Yes.
Keo?
Yes.
Pardo?
Yes.
Robbins?
Yes.
Shafford?
Yes.
Townsend?
Yes.
Moreau?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
And Zepp.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Take care.
Everybody.
Soon.